My name is Nikki Williams, and I serve as the chapter president and one of the founders for NSN Louisiana. We're so excited you could join us tonight on this virtual platform. We hope you are all staying safe, and our thoughts and prayers are with you and your family during this pandemic. I would like to take a moment and introduce all the panelists on the call tonight. First, we have our board chairman, past president, who is also a founder on the call, Mr. Stewart McCall. Stewart comes with years of sales experience in various sectors, winning sales awards in every sales position he was hired for. He currently works in medical device and comes with a wealth of knowledge regarding resumes. Next up is Mr. Lim Turnipseed. Lim is one of the hardest working members in our chapter, and he's not even an officer. He will be our moderator. Lim actually currently works as an ILD senior sales consultant in rare diseases and is a presidential award winner. Last but not least, we have Natalie Raby, who is a senior talent acquisition manager with Flex Crew. Natalie has spent the last 12 years recruiting for some of the top Fortune 500 companies covering Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, and Florida. Now, many of you have asked or has asked me directly, or any of us directly, what is NSN, or what is NSN Louisiana? NSN, or the National Sales Network, is a networking and professional development organization for persons in sales or interested in a sales career. The unique or interesting thing about our chapter is that we have other professionals that are aligned to our chapter as well, such as doctors, lawyers, and entrepreneurs who truly find a benefit in what we have to offer. Some of the reasons that people join NSN obviously are for the networking opportunities, professional development, job opportunities, and camaraderie. The National Sales Network was started in 1992 by our CEO and founder, David Richardson. We currently have 19 chapters across the United States. So if you're not in Louisiana, please visit salesnetwork.org for more information on chapters near you. You can contact the Louisiana chapter at nsnlouisiana@hotmail.com or by visiting nsnlouisiana.org. We're ready to begin tonight's discussion. Why didn't you get the job? Improving the resume. Take it away, Lim and Natalie.
Thank you, Nikki. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Have you ever applied for that awesome job you thought that you were a perfect fit for? You sent in your resume and you got no response from a recruiter, from a hiring manager. It goes back to how you represent yourself on paper. How do you look? Now, based on my experience, and of course my limited experience when it comes to hiring, I would always look at resumes as, this is the best I'm going to see you. So how you represent yourself on paper is going to be very, very valuable in leading to the next step of the job. If I have 5 to 500 different resumes, the biggest thing is what makes it stand out? What makes me see you professionally doing this job? That's one of the reasons why we brought in Miss Natalie Raby. Miss Natalie has, of course, has a wealth of experience looking at resumes, filling positions throughout the entire Gulf Coast. Now, what we're going to do tonight is we're going to let her speak in more detail on what do these hiring managers and recruiters look for specifically when it comes to the resume. And if you have questions or if you have any kinds of input that you want to ask, please put it in the feed and we can see if we can address it either along or towards the end, okay? So with Natalie's wealth of experience, Natalie, please take it away.
Thank you guys. Hello. Thank you guys so much for the invite, and I appreciate your time tonight, this evening. As Lim mentioned, we were going to be talking about, or are going to be talking about, resumes. I have worked in this industry as far as recruiting, talent acquisition, career development and building for the past 12 plus years. And what I tell everybody is initially, before you can even meet with a company or anything like that, the first thing you have to have when you start anything is a resume. The resume has to be effective in what it looks like, its content, the information that you provide to the hiring manager from the resume. A lot of times I tell people over the time I've seen resumes that some people adhere to well, it needs to be one page. That's not always true. I'm debunking some of the myths that they have about what resume should look like. Your resume should basically be your wealth of knowledge, your education, and what you've done throughout your career. Some resumes I've seen 2 pages, some I've seen 3. Anything past that, that's a bit exhaustive. So I would probably tell most people, if you can, keep it to 2 or 3 pages. Sometimes you can write a cover letter and try and include some of the things that you couldn't necessarily capture in your resume in the cover letter, if the hiring managers are open to a cover letter. From that, I normally tell everybody something that's very important to see in the resume: no misspellings. There's a number of times I will get resumes and they come in Word or they come in PDF form, and there are so many lines under there that it's visible, that there are errors in your resume. That's probably one of the first things we look at. Normally in looking at any resume, we have normally at least a 10-second where I can actually look at that resume and tell if somebody is a potential match for what I'm looking for. So if you can't capture our attention in those seconds, a lot of times when we're looking for keywords and things like that, or the format is wrong, or it's not appealing to the eye, we can't find keywords, we will pass on looking at that resume, moving on to the next resume, because we don't want to waste our time to see, could this person potentially be a fit? Well, if it doesn't capture the neatness, the words that are included in there, the content, then yes, somebody will take your resume, pass it on, looking for another resume that's a closer match. Something that's also new in the industry is artificial intelligence. A lot of times when you guys apply online to companies like your Chevrons, your Exxons, different companies like that, there is a Boolean type of search behind the scenes. You guys will never see this, that actually picks up keywords. So if you, just say for instance, if I'm looking for some type of sales professional, somebody that's done pharmaceutical sales, the person that has pharmaceutical sales in their resume more times will get to the top than somebody who only has it mentioned maybe 4 or 5 times. So that's something else that I wanted to kind of caution you guys on artificial intelligence. Some things that are also imperative to have in your resume is it has to be streamlined. It has to have an easy flow for a person like me to read it. Because when I pass it off to my hiring manager, they're going to want that easy flow to read it as well. Sometimes I'll get resumes and they have like these real graphics and all these other things like that. That's not necessary, you guys, unless you're going into IT or something like that. And then also, too, I'll caution you, when we take these resumes and we're trying to import them into our system, because there's so many different graphics and different things on there, it's hard to import. And if the resume won't import, sometimes you won't necessarily get a call. So that's why I always tell everybody, Times New Roman, font of about 10, 11, possibly 12. That's all you need. I would also tell you to include your, of course, email address, a valid telephone number, as well as your LinkedIn, the link to your LinkedIn profile. I cannot tell people enough, that is what we normally go to. That's our go-to. Anybody that sends us a resume or anything like that, we're going to take that information. We're going straight to LinkedIn to take a look at what that person looks like, what they've done throughout their career, and actually visually what they look like. Something else that we do when it comes to resumes is, we do keyword searches on resumes. So if there's something that you need to keyword searches, and we're more likely to call somebody that has more mentions of that than somebody that doesn't. Sometimes, in looking at resumes, people don't necessarily feel like, oh, well, they know I'm a pharmaceutical salesman. Well, if somebody's using an AI or something like that, artificial intelligence, to go and find those people, guess what? You only have it mentioned there once, and we know you do pharmaceutical sales. Well, technically, no, we don't. We're going based off of what we have in our hand, which is your resume. I've been doing this for a very long time. When it comes to resume writing, I tell people, if you can, get somebody else to take a look at your resume sometimes. That's a peer or a friend, or even somebody in like this national sales network. If you guys, like with LIM, and if you have somebody that's a mentor, somebody like that can actually advise you on your resume. So many times I talk to people, and I've looked at their resume and they're like, oh, Lim told me to do that to my resume. And I'm like, well, why wouldn't you listen? You have to be open to other people's discretions, and also their recommendations of improvement. We can all use improvement in life, period. You have to think about things like that. Somebody wouldn't necessarily tell you something that's not helpful unless they want to see you fail. Hopefully, you're surrounding yourself with people that want to see you win, and they can actually advise you on, hey, this is, because I look at resumes, you guys, day in, day out. I mean, I may have looked at probably 50 resumes today. And if they aren't, just really picking up my attention, they get passed over. Things that we look for in resumes, like I said, the keyword, of course, grammatical. Something I always caution people about: email addresses. Make sure your email address, even at everybody's age, I tell people all the time, if your email address is sexylips1958@gmail.com, that's not necessarily something that will get you a call back. So I do want to put that out there. Sometimes people feel like, oh, well, this is just an email address. Well, you're also being kind of gauged or looked at based on this piece of paper, these pieces of paper I have in front of me, until I can look up your LinkedIn profile or give you a call. So as Lynn mentioned earlier, you want to have the best presentation that you can, because initially all I have of you is your piece of paper. Something else I always try and tell people: if you're going for a job and you feel like you applied to like 20 sales jobs and you aren't getting any calls back, reevaluate your resume. You may have somebody, like I said, a resume writing professional, which I am also. Take a look at your resume. It may not have the content that's needed in there to garner a sales role. It may not have, certain contents or things based on what a company is hiring for. A lot of times, if you're looking at a sales role, it's probably attractive for somebody to have like some type of sales metrics in their resume. For example, Lim has been in the President's Club at his current employer. Well, we all know that in order to get to the President's Club, you've had to have some millions of dollars in sales. Sometimes that will actually help you in writing your resume. Now, I also tell people, just say, for instance, if you've had 2 different careers, you've done sales, but you've also done maybe administrative work on the side until you can find a sales role. I always tell people, have 2 different versions of your resume. Don't ever put anything on your resume that's not true. That's education, that's job descriptions, that's job duties, that's years of employment, nothing. Everything on your resume has to be 100% true, honest, because people will verify it. But if you are going for two different types of roles, then I liken it to a bow and arrow. You want to shoot the arrow that's close to a match to the job that you're looking for. So just say, for instance, if you've done sales, you've done administration, and you have two different variations of your resume, you're going to shoot the arrow that's closer to the job that you want, which would be more of the sales resume with the performance metrics, with your numbers and things like that. With COVID, we're seeing a very different way of hiring nowadays, and I'm sure you guys can attest to this. Some positions, a lot of positions have been put on hold just because clients are trying to see, you know, different things about earnings and statements and stuff like that about the government, and everybody trying to see where things are going in the next couple months. So there has been a tremendous pause in hiring right now. But during this time of pause, you guys can be working on dancing up your resume, getting it up to speed, your interview skills, that's something else, working on your LinkedIn profile. Anytime, you know, people don't have a job or are looking for a position, I always tell them your job now is to find a job. So you need to be the best at interviewing, the best resume writer. Your LinkedIn profile needs to scream, hire me. Also with COVID right now, as I mentioned earlier, people aren't doing the traditional come in the office, come and meet me interviews. They're doing interviews like this, the setting that we're in today. It's very important that if you're going to send over a resume, that it can represent you prior to you getting to this level of where we are right now. Especially right now with hiring, it is a company's world right now. Companies have the best pick of the pick, whereas if you told me about a year ago, it was very tight to find the talent that I needed. Right now, there's a plethora of talent out there, unfortunately, due to what we've been going through recently with COVID. So that's something else. As far as like interviews, that's going to be a very different process of how you guys will go from resume to interview. So what I would tell everybody is during this time, especially right now, if you can, work on your resume, making sure grammatical errors. You have a professional email address. If you can get a professional headshot to put on your LinkedIn profile, to add to your resume, that LinkedIn address, make sure that that's included there. Some things that you also may want to include is your education. There are a lot of times that people go for certifications. If you can afford it right now, and if there's some type of certification that you want to get to add to your resume, maybe right now would be the time if you have the free time where you can do that. So with that being said, I guess I wanted to go from here to see if there's any questions that you guys had, or how did you guys want to go about the Q&A session?
Yes, actually, there have been some questions that have been coming through for you. One of the first questions asked was, what are some of the ways to translate relevant volunteer experience into the resume? If I don't have the professional experience, but I have volunteer experience, how can I incorporate that?
You can incorporate that into your resume just like you would a position. I actually would tell anybody, a lot of times there's a header that says professional experience. You can put professional experience, and you can list the time that you volunteered at those different types of facilities and places, just like you would write it in a resume. But you just let the person know that's hiring you, you know, that, that's interviewing you, if you get to that stage, that it was volunteer. Make sure that you also include that on your resume. But absolutely, there are a lot of people that come out of college, they've never worked a position. So what I would tell them to do is, if you've done any volunteer work, make sure that that's added in there. If you've had any extra clubs, or if you're a member of a fraternity or sorority, you can incorporate a lot of those things into your resume. So absolutely, write your resume as if it was a position, but you put in there that it's been a volunteer experience.
Beautiful, beautiful. Now, one of the next questions I've gotten here is not providing a cover letter electronically, is that a deal breaker?
No, absolutely not. Most companies nowadays go straight to a resume. Unless they want a cover letter. I'm not saying that cover letters aren't important or they aren't popular any longer, but some companies do want a cover letter because it's a brief summary of what you've done maybe fairly recently. But a lot of times right now, I don't even get resumes with cover letters. I go straight to the resume. I go straight for the meat and potatoes. I don't necessarily need a cover letter. Sometimes I will have them write me based on the job description and your resume. I may have you write me maybe a paragraph or something of how you are fit for that position, if that makes sense. Sometimes if you choose to do that, you can cover that on a cover letter and send it in with your resume. But a lot of times cover letters aren't necessarily required anymore. So no, they're definitely not a deal breaker.
Excellent, excellent. Now, another question I got, you talked about those keywords, those programs that look for keywords within the resume, right?
Yes.
Are there any keywords that would eliminate you from a pool when it comes to candidates if you submit it electronically?
No, I don't think, as long as there aren't any profane words. The only thing I tell people all the time, kind of like when you're sending texts, when you're doing spell checks and things like that, make sure that, because a lot of times we just go zoom, 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 zoom. But if you put something, unfortunately, and you didn't mean to put it in that resume and it's a profane word or something like that, and it picks up on that, yeah, that's more likely where your resume will be thrown out. So that has happened. You'd be amazed at some of the stories I have. That's happened before. And then, the person, we contacted the person, they tried to explain that, maybe they had been writing something else earlier for an attorney or something like that, and they had to write verbatim, and the word got corrected to what it was not supposed to be. And so that when you do a spell check, it kind of teaches your computer, certain words. And it was a profane word. So yeah, as long as it doesn't have any profanities, you're okay.
It won't exclude you, but you want to look for those words that are in that job title. Make sure that's in your resume so it can be more highlighted so you can get pulled for the position. Excellent.
Correct.
Another question, and it goes back to the cover letter. It was taught that the cover letter was used to fill in the gaps when there are positions where there are big gaps in between one position versus another. Right now with COVID, we've had tons of people who've been laid off because the work's just not there. Would you, again, consider doing that as well, having that cover letter explain, okay, this is what's going on, haven't been working during this period because of this pandemic or whatever, to make that resume be a little more solid and that person more firm in hiring you?
You can, that is an option, and that's very suggestive. That's a good option. But like right now, I have, like if you go look on Career Builder, Zip, or some of them, you'll see positions that I have currently advertised. What I go for is keywords. Once I see those keywords, I'm reaching out to those people. A lot of those people that I'm speaking with, they will tell me, Natalie, the reason why I'm not working right now is COVID. I got laid off in March. So yes, if you want to cover it that way, absolutely.
Beautiful. Another question I have here is college. You have a lot of people who are concerned about their resume and they didn't do so well in college. They graduated with a 2.5 or just barely graduated. Should they put their GPA on their resume?
Absolutely not. I tell people all the time, unless a company is asking for that, that's not necessary. Sometimes I've cautioned people also too, if you have a bachelor's degree, if you graduate from Grambling, bachelor's degree in accounting, I think that's sufficient enough. Sometimes companies aren't supposed to discriminate, but sometimes like if you put that you graduated from Grambling University in 1977, sometimes people unfortunately look at those things and they'll be like, oh, he's, where they shouldn't, because that is like, somebody could be discriminated against. But I tell people all the time, just as a caution, if you graduate from Grambling University, you got your bachelor's in accounting, that's all that's necessary. Now, if the company should ask for those things or you have to fill out an application, absolutely put those things on there. But as far as a resume, if you graduated from Grambling University, you've got your bachelor's in accounting, and I'm using that as an example, then that's perfectly fine to put there. If you're a newer graduate, something that I just thought about, you guys, I'm sorry. If you're a new graduate, I tell the new graduates, always put their education at the top, because that actually lets me know that you recently graduated. And then you can also put the year. Most of the people like Lim, Stewart, me, we've all worked for so long. So, you know, you have your professional experience first, education can go at the bottom.
So, Lim, I want to jump in here real quick. Natalie, you forgot to add Nikki as far as been working for a long time as well.
She's much younger than all of us. What are you talking about?
Right. But no, it's going back to the GPA part. So what if someone graduated with a 3.75 or, you know, magna cum laude? So you're at the top of your class. Would you say you still don't include that on your resume, that GPA?
Yeah, I don't think that that's, you know, unless the company asks for that, Stewart, I wouldn't include it. And I rarely have companies, most of the companies that I work for, if they're looking for a new grad, they're going to find that on their own. There's plenty of new grads to go around. I'm normally tasked with finding things that are very hard to find. So I would tell them that, you know, if they feel like it's helpful, they can list that on their resume. But a lot of times, you know, when you fill out an application and things like that, they can get to that on the application. But I don't think it's necessarily where you have to have it listed on your resume. No.
Gotcha.
Okay. One of the other questions that have come through just now is, how would you recommend a person applying for an entry-level position? All right. How do you make their resume stand out versus people who have tons of years of experience?
Okay. Normally, when companies advertise for an entry-level candidate, they're looking for someone with a number of years of experience. Normally, entry-level may be no experience to maybe 3 years of experience. So a lot of times we will get resumes and we'll have somebody that has 20 years of experience. Guess what? That's not what my client's looking for. They're looking for somebody that they can actually raise within their company, possibly teach them the ropes, and hire that person based off of that. So a lot of times people think, oh, well, I'm going to lose out to this person because they have 20 years of experience and I have no experience. That's not necessarily so. If my client tells me they're looking for somebody entry level, then that is what I strive for, entry level. Something that they can do to make their resume stand out more than anybody is to take the job description itself, take your resume, and almost make them match to a degree. You go look through that job description. If it has, for an example, on this job description, has sold to medical facilities, and you've done that, make sure that you add that into every job that you've done that in. Even if it's repetitive, you can actually kind of find another way to word it. But things like that need to be included in your resume. I've always told people, when you get a job description, if you have time and you're really striving to get this position, even if it's entry level, make sure that the things that you've done that are in that job description are included in your resume. Does that make sense?
Oh, definitely.
Okay.
And I know I can speak to pharmaceuticals, and I know Stewart can also speak to medical devices, that when you talk about experience, our industry changes so much that something that was relevant just 10 years ago might be no longer relevant. So yeah, I agree with you. You know, when you're looking at people with little to no experience that can mold with a particular company. Another question that came through was, how important is it to send a follow-up email after an interview? And is it important? And then if it's important, how soon should I send it? Should I send it right after, a couple of days after, or what?
I will tell you, I have gotten 2 different positions in my lifetime because I was the only one that sent a thank you email. That is imperative. You have to thank that person for their time. If you are leaving an interview, you are asking them, can I have your business card? You get those business cards, you thank everyone you interviewed with, even if it was a panel of 20 people. That puts you, one, on their forefront. They're always thinking, well, this person did send me a thank you email. They thanked me for my time. That is imperative. That should go out at least, I always say at least 8 to 10 hours after the interview's concluded. The most you should wait should be 24 hours. That's the most.
And
Does that, yeah, that's very, I've had companies hire people because they've interviewed 5 people. They got 2 thank you emails, somebody thanking them for their time. They chose out of those 2 which to hire. That's always been a strong suit in what I do. I tell everybody, if I don't tell you anything else after that interview, thank those people for their time. It's very important.
And Lim, just to jump in here real quick. So Natalie, if like one of our sponsors, national sponsors for NSN, and is often at the conference, is Salesforce. And
I'm looking for a Salesforce developer right now. How funny.
Bam, look at that. So as you know, Salesforce, as of right, or before COVID, is in a large skyscraper. They have an office. People report to work, go home every day. What do you think about, and so I've had people, and let me say, I've had people I've interviewed, and they've given me a handwritten letter, a handwritten note as a follow-up. What do you think about people, let's say, especially if someone's in an office like Salesforce, after your interview, they leave a handwritten note with the secretary or the receptionist, or have it put in their mailbox?
I love receiving mail because I don't know, we don't get mail anymore. I love anything handwritten because nobody writes anything anymore. I've had to, and I've told people that that's a very good idea. If after you've concluded your interview, if you're sitting there, you know, and you can, and you have the stationery with you and stuff like that, write that thank you email out. I mean, a letter on that card or whatever. Leave it with the receptionist, absolutely. Now, I wouldn't tell you to take a piece of loose leaf paper and just tear it out of no, not at all. I mean, you know, sometimes there are the generic thank you cards that you can buy at the dollar store, Dollar Tree. I have a ton of little thank you letters and cards and stuff posted on the board because nobody ever sends anybody anything in writing anymore. I love it.
Thank you. Good.
It goes far.
Nice.
Excellent. Now, I think that one of the questions I have now is not having the experience in a specific specialty role, yet interested and talented for a promotion. How do you tailor your resume to get into something that you want to grow into, but not yet have the experience?
Cover letter. I tell people, take your regular resume of what you've done, try and contour it as much as you can. So just say, for instance, if you've done retail sales, I'll create an example real quick. You've done retail sales, but you want to break into pharmaceutical sales. You graduated college, you have a decent GPA. I would create a sales resume that's strictly geared towards sales. And then in the cover letter, you should let the company know you've always had a passion for pharmaceutical sales. Maybe you have somebody that you actually know that's involved in pharmaceutical sales, and you want to really get into this company. That goes a long way. I tell people all the time, LinkedIn is a tool that you can use to go in, connect with people that work for that company, possibly, you know, talk to somebody or connect with somebody that's in a human resources department. Let them know that you've had an interest. And eventually, sometimes I forged friendships, you know, via LinkedIn, to where I don't mind taking somebody's resume and sending it over, saying, hey, you know, this person doesn't necessarily have the experience, but this person's always had the passion. So 2 different ways. Cover letter, if you can, turn in a cover letter. And then 2, finding people that actually work for that company on LinkedIn and linking up with them and asking them, how did they get into the industry?
Excellent, excellent. Well, I will tell you this. That's amazing. I've gotten a lot of particular hits, specifically with the handwriting notes and the thank you letters from hiring managers who are watching, who are saying, yes, it's like, I look for those thank you letters for thank you for my time, because that's puts you at top of mind when it comes to going to the next step.
Absolutely.
And I tell folks that resume is that first close of the deal. If you're in a sales role, you got to close. Our job is to close, okay? And that resume is supposed to be designed to close for that face-to-face interview. So thank you so very much for alluding to that and talking about that as well. I'm looking, I don't see any more questions. Nikki, Stewart, do you have any other questions you want to ask, or panel?
I didn't have one at this time, but you know, Stewart may have something.
Okay. Well, more than anything, Stewart, you had a question. I'm sorry.
No.
I was going to bring it to you anyway.
No, go ahead.
More than anything, a resume is that first step in representing who you are to a hiring manager.
Right.
Right.
Yes.
So don't go the cheap route. Don't say, hey, I got this resume from when I graduated in college 50 years ago, and think that that's going to be something that's going to get you the next step. You truly have to invest in yourself. You truly have to invest in yourself. That's why I became a member of NSN, to help build my skills when it comes to selling and being better and progressing when it comes to the selling process. And that's why I go to get my resume checked by a resume writer, you know, and I'm going to reach out to Natalie and say, hey, Natalie, please look over my resume. When I'm looking for that next position, I want to make sure I have the best foot forward that's going to represent myself. And I know, Stewart, I know you can speak more about, you know, representing yourself and investing in yourself when it comes to resumes.
Absolutely. So, I mean, that's an excellent point. Most people know, especially if you've been to any NSN event, I am the king in investing in myself. You know, I remember when I first met Nikki, she used to use stone tablets to write her resume in, and I was able. Look how she upgrade her to
Nikki always had a professional written resume. I believe in investing in a professional resume, and it has always worked for me.
Okay, my bad. It was somebody I couldn't remember used to use stone tablets. But no, in all seriousness, I'm the king of investing in myself and my resume and everything. I often tell people, if I add up all the costs that I spent to get to where I am today, it's no less than $10,000. That includes resumes, cover letters, flights, hotels, the NSN conference. If a recruiter calls me and says, hey, I don't have any more interview slots, and this is when I lived in Atlanta, I don't have any more interview slots for here in Louisiana, but if you can make it here, we'll interview you. Well, I'd pay $2,000 for a ticket to get that shot, to get that opportunity. So I think if anything, anybody could take away today is most importantly, you know, using those tips that Natalie provided. And then secondly, if you're not as confident with your resume, if you're not confident that maybe you still might be missing something, like Natalie said, you've been rejected a few times, maybe you should spend the money in getting a resume writer. Even at my career now, right, I'll still get a resume writer if I'm trying to move up at Boston Scientific, just because I believe the resume, like Natalie said, the resume has to speak for itself. It has to speak for you. It has to be a representation. So that's kind of my 2 cents I'll throw in there is don't be afraid to invest in yourself. And then if there isn't anything else, I think I can go ahead and close. You have one more thing, Lim?
You know, I was going to say to everyone that's listening, Natalie is also a professional resume writer. So feel free to reach out. Natalie, you want to talk in more deal about what you do with resume writing?
Yes, absolutely. A lot of times people will have a resume and, something started and a lot of times they need to add the meat and potatoes and they don't necessarily know what to include in their resume. Normally what I do is I meet with these individuals. I actually do like an interview of them to try and find out what they've done in their career. And then from there, I try and incorporate all of that into their resume or as much as I can into their resume. So it's more so me, making sure that they can get looks, they can get interviews. I've been doing this now as far as resumes professionally, probably about the last year. And there's a gentleman I was working with in Dallas, and his resume was just not getting the looks. And right before COVID, I think he secured a new position because he was like, Natalie, since you redid my resume, I got like 10 different calls. I was like, what did she do? And he could compare his resume that he had written to what I had done. And you could see a vast difference. So yes, absolutely. I do professional resume writing. You can actually find Natalie Raby either on LinkedIn or you can send me a direct message. I don't use Messenger very much in Facebook. I would prefer you go through LinkedIn and send me a message on LinkedIn.
Okay. What I'll try to do, or Natalie, if you can, just put your LinkedIn hit in the link so everybody that's watching can see it and they can get you up from LinkedIn. That would be perfect.
Yeah, I will do that. I would provide my cell number, but that's just may get out to too many. Yeah. So what I'll do is, well, you guys have it, so they can feel free to contact you guys too.
What we could do, and Nikki and I could talk about this, 2 options. One, you could put your LinkedIn profile, just copy and paste it in the comment section of the live feed on Facebook. And then 2, we could talk about figuring out a way to get your information out to the members so they can contact you.
Absolutely.
Now, before we close off, and I know I had another question come real quick.
Sure,
I just really want to address. Is it appropriate to email a recruiter for feedback if you are not chosen to continue in the interview process?
Absolutely. The recruiter should give you feedback. There are times I get with hiring managers and they tell me, Natalie, we didn't elect this person, and I'm a stickler for trying to get the feedback. Also, when they pass over candidates, I'm always like, okay, so this person matched this position. Tell me why you don't want to meet them. Most of the time we can get feedback, but I will tell you sometimes managers, especially as of lately with COVID, are kind of like putting those types of things on the back burner. I have, I think, close to 100 recommendations. So I've been doing this a long time. And that's one of the things that I have always heard about recruiters. People are always like, I never got feedback. I never heard back from the recruiter. I try and make it a point, even if that person doesn't get the job and I don't get feedback, I'm going to call them and still say, hey, they didn't want to go forward with you. And I'm trying to get feedback from you. But we have to depend on another individual, which is a hiring manager. And sometimes they aren't so sufficient in providing that back to us. But any recruiter that you work with should try and get that information for you. Absolutely.
Beautiful. Excellent. And lastly, do you also help with LinkedIn profiles?
Yes, I do. I think you were saying that we were going to do a part 2 to this.
That's right. That's right.
It was going to be LinkedIn profiles. I tell people all the time, my profile, there's always this thing where it'll tell you what percentage, my profile is 100% complete. So I tell people, go look at my profile, and maybe I'm giving away, some secrets or something like that. But I'm always like, go look at my profile. It's 100% complete. I've got the skills, I've got recommendations, education, certification, anything that I've done in my career is on there. So I tell people, you can look at mine as an example, but a lot of times people don't know what to look for. So yes, I do that. I do help a lot of people with their LinkedIn profiles. Yes, I do.
Perfect. Excellent.
So what's funny? Natalie, you just solved a mystery for me.
What?
My LinkedIn profile has always been at like 98%. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't figure, what am I missing? So I actually don't have any recommendations.
You'll get to 100%. Do that.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm looking forward to you writing a recommendation, even though we just met. Thank you so much.
Great moderator.
That's boom. There we go.
There it is.
Yeah.
Well, with that being said, Natalie, I want to thank you today. A lot of valuable information. This was awesome. This was great. I'm pretty sure people will be reaching out to you, and so we definitely look forward to kind of seeing what comes out of this, and hope to continue to have you part of the NSN Louisiana family. Lim, great job as usual as a moderator. Crushed it, killed it.
Yes.
We expected nothing less. So thank you. And as Nikki said, you're not even an officer yet. So the stuff that you do, we wouldn't be where we are without you. Nikki, thank you. Chapter president, extraordinary job.
Yes, Nikki, thank you so much. Thank you, Lim. Thank you, Stewart.
And then also the chapter officers, I know they're watching right now. Thank you for all that y'all did with the marketing, promoting, and getting the word out there, email, setting everything up. So appreciate everybody for being a part of this and getting this going. And then lastly, just want to leave prayers for everybody dealing with the COVID-19 situation. You have our best wishes through this all. We definitely hope you get through it. We wish nothing but the best during this time. And we hope to see you again in person in the future once things get back to normal. If you'd like to continue to follow us and hopefully come to an event whenever we have something in person, we are on YouTube, we're on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook under NSN Louisiana. So you can find us under any of those social media sites, LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. So that being said, thank you. Thank everybody. We appreciate it. Job well done.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.